Thanks very much, and it's a real pleasure to be here at CogX. There's so many different topics that are associated with artificial intelligence. It's very interesting for us to discuss this particular one in the context of ethics, because when we're talking about deepfakes and disinformation, we're by definition dealing with folks that have abandoned ethics, and they're intentionally trying to deceive others by creating fraud. So this is a problem that I have dealt with in various ways throughout my career. I was previously responsible for click fraud protection at Google, where cybercriminal groups starting in the mid-2000s would create large-scale fraud, simulating human activity in order to be able to generate money for themselves. And now at Shape, one of the things that we do is we protect against large-scale simulations of humans that are trying to take over bank accounts, take over airline accounts, and basically attack every user interface that exists online. So when we're talking about the ethics of these cybercriminal groups, these are organizations that don't care at all about being responsible in their use of artificial intelligence. They don't care at all about the effects that they're having on others. And they do things that are absolutely unconscionable. Like, for example, inserting Nicolas Cage into various movies that you might have seen all over the internet. So this is a pretty benign example of what you can do with deepfake technology and what you can do with artificial intelligence in general for your own amusement. But there are more nefarious uses of this that I'm sure many of you have already seen. For example, this video from Jordan Peele demonstrating how you can use deepfake technology to get President Obama to say just about whatever you want if you're simulating his voice. Now, there's another video that has been in the news cycle recently, which is not a deep fake. And so this video of Nancy Pelosi does not require any real sophistication to be able to create. It's just slowing down an image in the same way that you could slow down a video 40 years ago. But it has a very similar type of effect in terms of making people believe something that simply isn't the case. So when we're talking about disinformation and related topics, I find that it's useful to have some kind of framework to be able to provide what education professionals call pedagogical scaffolding in order to be able to have a productive discussion. So here is a framework that actually comes from First Draft, which is a project spun out of Harvard's Kennedy School. And it demonstrates how there's a difference between misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. So misinformation is something that we have seen a great deal of in terms of any time people make a mistake. It's not necessarily intentional, but it's giving us information that is inaccurate. Malinformation, on the other hand, is information which is accurate, but it is being distributed or it's being published specifically with the intent to create harm. So, for example, taking people's private information and doxing them in order to be able to publish it online, to be able to make people think differently about them or to be able to hurt them in some way because of the disclosure of that private information, that's an example of malinformation. Disinformation, on the other hand, is information which is both inaccurate and has been created in order to perpetuate fraud and create harm. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today. So how do we identify disinformation? One of the most natural things that we do is we ask ourselves, does this look suspicious? Is this coming from a source that we actually trust? And upon performing further research, can we actually demonstrate or prove that it's real? So there are various sources that society has a great deal of trust in these days, and the encyclopedia wars are over, and Wikipedia has won. This is actually a headline from more than 10 years ago based on a study that was conducted in Nature where they concluded in a comparison between Wikipedia articles and Encyclopedia Britannica articles that Wikipedia was just as valid and just as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica was. So just let's delve into an example of a Wikipedia article. Show of hands, how many folks have heard of the author Emerson LaSalle from the United States? So those of you who raised your hands, you have some questions you need to ask yourselves because this is not a real author. This is a fake article that lasted on Wikipedia for more than a year. you can see that there was a great deal of work that was put into this article, coming up with fake names of novels that he'd written, like Men Called Him Trevor. And when you think of the review process that goes into Wikipedia articles, these are real human editors. This is not technology being fooled. This is human editors looking at this article and saying, yeah, this looks okay to me. Here is an article that lasted on Wikipedia for more than 11 years. This is about a Civil War general who never existed, complete with a monument that has nothing to do with this fictional Civil War general. So, what if we could do a much better job of this, not only on Wikipedia, but on various other news sources and channels? What if we could identify all fake content much faster than 1 year or after 11 years? What if we could do it, for example, within 30 days? Well, there's a famous quote that you guys might be familiar with from Winston Churchill, that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. And what this is illustrating is that once you discover that something actually is disinformation, sometimes the harm has already been caused. It's too late. It makes people think of something that they weren't thinking of before. Maybe they start asking themselves, yeah, you know what? Nancy Pelosi is getting a bit old. Even though I know that that video is doctored and she did not speak in the way that the video made it appear that she speaked, now I'm thinking about something that I wasn't thinking about before. And so it's really difficult to be able to diffuse that harm and prevent it from occurring unless you can get really fast at being able to identify that disinformation, hopefully getting to the point of being able to prevent it from getting out there or getting propagated very early on in that cycle. Now, by the way, this quote from Winston Churchill is also interesting because Winston Churchill never actually said this. But society really believes that he did. If you do a Google search on it, you can find more than 30,000 web pages that show that Winston Churchill actually said that thing. So you'll find folks that will definitely disagree and say, no, I'm absolutely certain that he said that. So disinformation is something that is very difficult to fight against. So how is fake content actually created? So when we're talking about deepfakes, there are a number of different applications. Some of them are available for download. Fake app is probably the most popular. So this is the user interface. You can string together some NVIDIA GPUs, and you yourself can insert Nicolas Cage into whatever videos you would like. There's also technology that's available. This is from a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com from Philip Wang, who's a software engineer at Uber. And none of these people actually exist. These are simulated faces created using NVIDIA's StyleGAN toolkit. There is also deep learning and AI technology that allows you to be able to completely simulate voices of celebrities such as prominent politicians. Once you've synthesized those voices, there is additional technology that allows you to be able to match the movement of their lips in videos to that audio that you've created. And this is an article from just yesterday that talks about new research that's coming out of Stanford and the Max Planck Institute, Princeton, and Adobe that allows you to basically fix up all of the minor errors that get introduced in the deepfake generation process today. So there's this stack of technology that exists to make it easy for even folks that don't have a great deal of technical knowledge to be able to create very realistic videos. So if you can generate those videos, now one of the questions that you might have is, what should I have those videos say? Let's say that I have a political agenda, or let's say that I have the desire to be able to generate fake content on a particular topic. It might be a lot of work for me to sit there and write out the script that I want these celebrities or politicians to say. So now there's AI that does that for you as well. Some of this AI has already been flagged as being so problematic that there are organizations, such as Elon Musk's OpenAI organization, that has refused to reveal or share its technology because they believe it has a great potential for harm. So how do we actually protect ourselves against this type of disinformation? Like I was mentioning, we need to try and detect this content as it's being propagated. It's not actually possible to prevent it from being created in the first place. You can't control what someone can do on their own workstation in a basement or what a cybercriminal organization halfway around the world might be generating. But as soon as it gets shared onto a social media platform, as soon as it gets posted onto a website, that's where the public has the opportunity, and online services perhaps have a responsibility to actually detect it and do something about it. And so there was an article written by Andy Greenberg in Wired a few months ago talking about how we need to go beyond security as an industry, and we need to deal with how online applications and platforms can be abused. So something can be completely secure from a traditional cybersecurity perspective, but if it can be abused, then you can create all kinds of unintended consequences. So some of you might be familiar with Uba Butler, who was a journalist at Vice, who was able to make his shed the #1 restaurant on TripAdvisor by creating fake reviews. So that's an example of a system where it wasn't a data breach, it wasn't a traditional cybersecurity vulnerability that exploited, but just by creating fake reviews, he was able to manipulate not only what the system was saying, but also the public opinion about an entity somewhere out there in the world. So how widespread is this type of automated abuse today? Here's a chart from Facebook specifically detailing how many fake accounts they have to deal with on a regular basis. And in just the last 6 months, there were more than 3 billion fake accounts that Facebook detected and was able to remove from their systems. Now, in the same report, Facebook also revealed that using machine learning to be able to identify these fake accounts had a 99.8% success rate. Now think about exactly what that means with a problem of this magnitude. It actually translates into more than 40 million accounts in that time period that they were not able to algorithmically detect. All it takes is a single account to upload a piece of fake content which then goes viral in order to be able to influence public opinion. Imagine what you could do if you had 40 million accounts to be able to do that. And there is a huge marketplace for these fake accounts. This is really the basis for being able to propagate disinformation online. Here's a snapshot of one of these marketplaces that sells not only Facebook fake accounts, but also Twitter fake accounts, Reddit fake accounts, and fake accounts for other platforms. You'll notice some terminology here that's worth spending a minute on. Soft reg accounts are accounts that have simply been registered, often using automated scripts, and they don't necessarily have any friends that are associated with them on the platform. They don't have a great deal of activity, and so those accounts might actually stand out and look suspicious to something like Facebook's detection algorithms. A boosted account, on the other hand, is an account that might have a few friends that the cybercriminal organization that registered the accounts has associated with it. It might have some activity, it might have a little bit of a history, might even be manually registered. And aged accounts are the accounts that have actually existed on the platform for quite some time. These are accounts that look organic. They might have not only hundreds of friends that they're connected to, but they might have had conversations with these friends that the cybercriminals have simulated over the course of months or even years so that they look like they're behaving exactly the same way that a legitimate user on Facebook or on Twitter would look. So these aged accounts are really difficult to detect, and in general, they sell for much higher rates than the boosted accounts or the soft reg accounts. So what attackers are doing in these cases is they're using automation to be able to pass what you can think of as a mass Turing test. So the most widely used Turing test in the world is designed to be able to keep this type of automated activity out and to allow humans in. And that system is CAPTCHA. So CAPTCHA, not a lot of people realize this, actually stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. And so the intent here is create something that's easy for humans and hard for bots. Google did some research into this, specifically into synthetic distorted text challenges that their own reCAPTCHA system was using, and they wanted to validate whether or not CAPTCHA was fulfilling its mission. And what they discovered, unfortunately, was that humans had become terrible at solving CAPTCHAs, getting them wrong most of the time, and bots, on the other hand, using machine learning-based optical character recognition, now had a 99.8% solve rate. There are also cybercriminal services that will outsource CAPTCHA solving to sweatshops in order to be able to solve any new CAPTCHA system which is created. So you've all heard about massive data breaches that have occurred over the course of the last several years. And all of the usernames and passwords that are in that ecosystem are used by another set of cybercriminal tools like this one, which is called Sentry MBA, in order to automatically log into every account system that's out there. And this is what we do at Shape. We identify this type of activity and we protect the online banks, the online airlines, and all of the other online services that are subjected to it on a daily basis. So how frequently do these attacks occur? Because remember, it's a lot more valuable to be able to access an aged account, particularly an account which is owned by someone else. If you can take over those accounts using a real username and password, because users rampantly reuse the same password across various sites, now all of a sudden you've got a very trusted account on a system because it belonged to a real user. So when you look at any major online service, this is what normal traffic looks like. You expect to see this diurnal periodicity when it comes to the organic traffic, where your real users are going to be using your service more frequently during the daytime than during the night. And this is actually a snapshot of traffic from one of the world's largest retailers. So this is what it should look like, but this is what it actually looked like during the time period that we were analyzing it. This looks a lot more random, and there's a reason for this. The organic traffic pattern only represented about 8% of the traffic. The vast majority of the traffic on a 24/7 basis was actually coming from credential stuffing attacks that were trying to take over these accounts by simulating human logins. And this is a pattern that we see across every major online service all around the world. So whether it's top luxury retailers or European airlines or hotel chains or social networks, this is what is happening regardless of whether or not people have visibility into it and whether or not the online services have visibility into it. So as we're thinking about the impact of how they can use these accounts and how disinformation can get propagated, and particularly how deep fakes are going to get propagated in the coming years, one of the things that I want to leave you with is a framework for thinking about this evolution. So we're sort of between stage 1 and stage 2 right now. Right now, an individual who has access to the technology, who has the right skill set, can create a pretty convincing deepfake. We're not quite at stage 2 yet, where there are millions of people and sufficiently commoditized tools that anyone will be able to create a deepfake of their own. And we have some time before we're at stage 3, where an individual or a single group is going to be able to mass produce this content. There's still some cost that's associated with that and some time to be able to do the analysis and rendering to be able to create the deepfakes. So an illustration of this is a journalist at The Verge actually got Fake App and was trying to create deepfakes himself, and what he discovered was that he was really bad at it. So there is a little bit of a learning curve that still exists to be able to create these deep fakes, but that's something that's rapidly being closed. So what I want to leave you with is what we can really do about this problem. We have to constantly be skeptical of information that we receive. We need to verify sources, and we need to do everything that we can as individuals and as platforms to be able to proactively detect fraud. As Thomas Jefferson said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And if you were eternally vigilant and you were skeptical and you verified sources, you would discover that Thomas Jefferson never actually said this. It was actually from an Irish politician named John Philpott Curran, and the quote that he gave was less catchy, and that's probably why the disinformation is what has persisted and has been commoditized and commercialized over time. Thank you very much.